everyone, welcome back to Daily Diabetics. My name is Laina if you guys don't know me, and today I'm going to be sharing with you the pros and cons of the Omnipod insulin pump and the Dexcom G6 and telling you about why I chose them and if I would recommend them to you. So starting out with the Omnipod insulin pump, the first thing that came to mind was that you can change and adjust your basal rate. So basically a basal rate is the amount of insulin you get throughout the day. For example, if you are using injections, this would be the same as Lantus. The difference with using a pump though is that you can change the amount you get throughout the day. So if you notice a certain point in the day, every single day you start to run higher, you can increase your basal rate at that time. And then you can also do like temp basal rates. So if it's something that you don't normally do every day and you don't want to create like a whole new basal program, you can just do a temporary basal and increase it by a certain percentage or decrease it by a certain percentage. On my pump right now, I have a temp basal like already programmed in called cross country, so it's basically an 80% decrease in my basal rate for 3 hours, and I just turn this on whenever I'm gonna work out, run, go to practice, anything like that. Another reason why you may want to increase or decrease your basal rate could be like if you're sick and you notice your blood sugar is running kind of higher. And then also I noticed like for girls, like when you're on your period, you can do like a temp basal and increase it. I made a whole new basal program for that instead of a temp basal. I still have to get it all worked out and everything, but I was trying out some things and I noticed that increasing my basal rate really tends to help some. Another huge benefit I love compared to injections is if your blood sugar is running higher, it's just nicer to take a correction without having to take a whole nother injection. Some people wouldn't mind taking another injection, like they could care less. That would just bother me. I wouldn't want to take another injection. So then typically I would just continue to run high until my Lantus would bring it back down. And if you can't do an increased basal rate, then sometimes it takes forever for it to come back down. So I think that it's really nice to just be able to get on your PDM or your insulin pump, whatever kind you have, and to just take a correction. Something that is very, very cool with insulin pumps is that you can get down to the precise dosage of 1/100th of a unit, which is very, very small if you think about that. On insulin pens, I think you can just do half a unit is the smallest amount you can do, and then on syringes, you can kind of draw it to where it's precise, but then you kind of don't know what it is. I used syringes for about a week, so I honestly don't know much about them. There's a feature on insulin pumps called an extended bolus. So basically what it is a bolus, if you don't have an insulin pump or you don't know what it is when you like take your mealtime insulin or like your fast acting insulin like your Novolog or Humalog. So that's your bolus, and an extended bolus is basically you can select like how much of the bolus you want right now and how much you want later. So you can set it up for a certain span of time. So say you're eating like foods with higher fats like pizza. This helps to prevent spikes in your blood sugar like later on throughout the night. But it's a really cool feature, and if you figure out how to do it correctly, it can be really, really helpful in managing your blood sugar and preventing blood sugar spikes. You can like choose to get 80% of the bolus now and 20% over the next half hour or however long you choose to extend the bolus. This next pro is definitely towards the Omnipod, and that is because it is tubeless. Having no tube makes it easy to move around, to run, to be active, to play sports. It's like you aren't even wearing anything. Like I'm so used to wearing a Dexcom and an Omnipod that I don't even realize that I have it on anymore. And so when I'm running, you don't feel it, even if it's on your arm, even if it's on your leg. I was a little bit like weary about wanting to try it on my leg since I'm a runner, but I tried it and I ran with it. It stayed on perfectly fine, and you couldn't even tell it was on there. So you don't have to worry about it getting yanked out or pulling on it or anything like that. All of those worries and stressful things just disappear with the Omnipod. Something I love about having an insulin pump, specifically the Omnipod, is the insertion. So with an Omnipod, it has automatic insertion, so whenever you're like changing your pod, you'll go into your PDM, and I think it says insert, go, start, something like that. You press a button and then it goes in. So you don't have to manually push in any needles. You don't have to like, with the Dexcom G5, you had to like push it in. You don't have to do any of that with the Omnipod. I wouldn't say I'm scared of taking an injection, but it's not my favorite thing to do. Like I kind of get a mental block with that. With the G5, when I still had that, I would sit there for 5 minutes before pushing it in, just because it's a little bit like not really wanting to push it in because I just don't like that feeling. So this is great for people like me who kind of have a mental block with injections and stuff. Another reason this is good is because you know it's going to go in for sure every time. Unlike with the T-Slim, sometimes sometimes I wasn't sure if it was in all the way or incorrectly, or if I was even getting my insulin at all, because if the cannula was messed up or anything. I haven't had any cannula kinks or anything with my Omnipod. This next one is specifically for the Omnipod, and there are other pumps that go along with this, but from personal experience, this is what I know about the Omnipod. It's very user-friendly. All you do is click the home button, and then you pull it up. It says your name to make sure it's your Omnipod. The chances are you probably won't find another PDM just laying around, but you never know. It's very self-explanatory. So on the menu here, it just says bolus, temp, basal, settings. Very easy to use, especially for people who aren't very techy and don't really understand stuff like high tech. This is really simple and easy to use. Going back to basal programs, you can actually set up different basal programs that you can turn on and off for certain days. You can use the same one every day. You can make one for school days, for weekends. If you're on vacation and you are being really active, more active than normal, like I mentioned earlier, sick days, when you're on your period, things like that, you can just fine tune it to where it's really, really helpful and beneficial. This next one, some people may think is a con, but it actually is. Like, it can be annoying, but it's actually a pro because it's just for safety, and that's the alarms on the Omnipod. So a huge turnoff for people when they're deciding on their pump. They don't like the Omnipod because they hear about the failing like pod stories. And honestly, my pod has failed maybe twice, and it was my fault. The pod has never failed because it was malfunctioning, anything like that. It was my fault both times because there was static in my shirt. But your pod will beep an hour before it expires, and when it expires, it will beep. From personal experience, I realized that the pod lasts 3 days and 8 hours after the 3 days is up. So one time I forgot that I had to change my pod. I went to bed like normal. At around 2 a.m., I believe, I woke up to the beeping sound. If you've never heard an Omnipod fail before, I'm sure there's plenty of videos you can go and hear it. It's not the most pleasant sound, but it does its job because it wakes you up. I'm the heaviest sleeper. I don't wake up to Dexcom alarms. I don't wake up to anything, but this alarm actually woke me up, and I woke up and realized I needed to change my pod. So I would have ran out of insulin if this alarm wouldn't have been as obnoxious as it is. So it's a really good safety feature. I know some people probably hate this alarm, but it really does its job well, and it's there for a purpose. Something I absolutely love about the Omnipod is that it's waterproof. You can take a shower with it, you can swim with it. If you're on vacation, you can go in the ocean with it. With tubed pumps, most tubed pumps, I believe, you cannot swim with. With my T-Slim, I would always disconnect, and something that can come out of that disconnecting for a while is increased blood sugar levels, or like raising your blood sugar. And if you're swimming in something, you can decrease your basal rate but still be getting some. The Omnipod trainer, whenever I was getting my Omnipod, she said with running and stuff, like with my T-Slim, I would always take it off because I hated wearing the belt and clipping it on my pants. It was just the most uncomfortable thing ever. So she told me that actually that disconnecting and not getting any insulin, like when you're working out or anything, doesn't really benefit you, because insulin is how the sugar converts into energy, I believe. I don't know how to explain it, but she told me something like insulin converts or changes it into energy. Not exactly sure, but without the insulin, you don't have as much energy. Something really, really nice about the pod is that the PDM is very small. Like, here's my iPhone. I have the iPhone 8, and that's the size difference in those. And then the actual pod, I have it on my stomach right now, so you can't really see it. That's about how long it is. I've done a few videos on this channel where I've changed it or shown the Omnipod, but it's not very big and it's very discreet. Through your clothes, it doesn't stick out or like anything like that. Before I got my pod, I was confused on this concept, but with the Omnipod, you don't have to have the PDM near you 24/7. The only time you have to have it near you is if you're making change to your basal rate or you're bolusing. So any other time you don't have to be near it, your basal rate will continue to go as normal until you make any other changes. Next thing I want to talk about is the site changes with the Omnipod. So these are just a breeze compared to the T-Slim for me personally. The site changes take maybe 5 minutes. They're really easy as well. All you do is take off your old pod, fill the new pod with insulin, stick it on, and hit insert. Another thing the Omnipod trainer told me when I got mine was that in your tubing there could be air bubbles, and you could just fill it and get all the air out perfectly, and there could still be air bubbles in it. Whenever I took my T-Slim off and was switching over to Omnipod, she showed me on my tubing there was literally like this long of an air bubble, and she said that could be like a few hours worth of no insulin, and that explained a lot because I would randomly spiked for no reason at all when I was on the T-Slim, and that was the reason why, was because there was air bubbles in the tubing and I would go hours without getting any insulin. And she said it wasn't my fault, you can't really do anything about it, that's just something that comes with having a tubed insulin pump. And she said with the Omnipod, there's no tubing, so there's no problems like that with air bubbles or not getting your insulin. And then finally, the last thing I wanted to talk about with the pros with the Omnipod is the customer service. So it's awesome. It's open 24/7. You can call them anytime. And like I said, I've only had like a few pods fail and it was my fault. But when they did fail, even though it was my fault, they still sent me a replacement right away, and that's just awesome. So on to the cons with the Omnipod. I could only think of a few because honestly, this pump I think is just perfect for me, a perfect fit for my lifestyle. So the one thing that I did think of was that if you run out of insulin before 3 days is up, like if you have to change it early, you can't add more insulin to the pod after you already put it on. So the only thing I can say about that is to make sure you calculate out how much insulin you're going to be using for the 3 days, or make a good estimate. At first it's going to take a little bit of trial and error, but you'll eventually get it down and you won't be wasting any insulin, or you won't be running out. So this isn't a problem for me because I figured out how much I need, and this shouldn't be a problem for anyone. As long as you just be careful with the amount you're putting in, you shouldn't have to run out or change it early. And that's pretty much the only con that I could think of. I know some people would say like the alarms are a con, but it's honestly, like, I can see where you're coming from, how that can be really annoying, especially if you're in like class or something and it's quiet. That can be a con and a little bit embarrassing when the alarm goes off, but honestly it's just for your safety, and I do appreciate the alarms, especially when it woke me up, because I'd rather have the alarm go off than be in DKA. So the main reason why I chose the Omnipod, or the main thing that sold me, was that it was tubeless, because I'm a runner. If you guys didn't know, I do cross country and track, and I think that just sold me because I didn't have to wear the pump on my shorts or wear a belt, because that just always has bothered me. I know some people can do it and they're fine with it, it's just never worked out for me good. And I would recommend the Omnipod to anyone, literally, no matter what age you are, who you are, especially athletes for sure, and then younger kids as well, because it's really user friendly and it's tubeless, so it's easier for kids to wear if they want to wear a pump, and it's like out of the way, they don't have to mess with the tubing. Okay, on to the pros for the Dexcom G6. The first one is an obvious pro, but that is being able to see your blood sugar and the trend 24/7. So if you guys have never seen a Dexcom reading or anything, basically on the app it has your blood sugar and then also an arrow showing the trend of which way your blood sugar is going. So it'll show if you're rising really fast, dropping fast. And honestly, I think the trend arrow makes it that much better. Like, always being able to see your blood sugar is one thing, but also being able to see the trend, and it also has a graph to see like how fast it's dropping, anything like that is so helpful. Something really cool with the Dexcom is that they have a Dexcom Share app. With the G6 and the G5, your friends or family, parents, anyone can get the Dexcom Share app, but it's really cool because my mom and dad can see my blood sugar on their phone, and then they can also set up alarms to get alerted when I'm low or high. Mainly this is helpful to me personally because, like I said earlier in the video, I don't wake up if my blood sugar is low in the middle of the night, even if the alarm goes off. So it's nice that they have an alarm so they can wake up to it, as without it, I would be terrified to sleep, basically. Something really nice about the Dexcom is that you can set high and low alarms, and you can change them to your preference. So some people may want their low alarm at 70, some may want it at 75, some may want it at 60. It's all up to you, whatever you personally want. And then you can also change the sounds, but it's nice to be able to personalize the alarms to how you want to personally manage your blood sugar and stuff like that. Something nice with the Dexcom, like I talked about with the Omnipod, is the insertion. The G6 has this new type of insertion where you just push a button and it goes in automatically, which is super nice because you don't have to manually push it in like the G5. And then also with site placement, you can put it in so many places. You can put it on the back of your arm, your stomach, your lower back, your legs, your inner thigh. So with the Dexcom G6, it lasts for 10 days rather than 7 days with the G5, which is really, really nice. So you don't have to change it as frequently. The last thing I want to talk about is how flat and small it is. The G5 was pretty small, but the G6 is even smaller. I currently have it on my arm, and you can't probably even see the bump right there. Like, you can't even see it through your clothes. It's very discreet. No one's gonna notice it. And on to the cons. There's only a few for this as well because it's just a really awesome piece of technology and it doesn't have that many flaws. But with any technology, there's going to be always cons. So the first thing that I thought of was with the adhesive, and honestly, I mean, you can't really do much about how sticky they make their adhesive. Sometimes I think they do this on purpose so that way you have to change it when you're supposed to, because some people leave it on for way too long, and so I think they made it less sticky on purpose. It's almost never going to stay on its own for the 10 days. You have to almost always put on some extra adhesive tape. So I recommend Expression Med for sure. That's my favorite one. I have that on right now. Girth grips, patch peels, and then there's also tons more that you can find out there. And then the other con that I thought of was that sometimes you'll get something called signal loss, and not exactly sure what causes this, but sometimes it'll come up and it's just annoying because you don't get any blood sugar readings. But it's really annoying whenever I'm about to go run and I can't see the trend of my blood sugar. I mean, I can check it manually, but the nice thing is seeing the trend if you're driving fast helps me determine like what type of snack I want to eat for practice or for a race. And then another time it's really annoying is like if you're going to bed, because if I don't have a reading before I go to bed, I don't go to bed. It freaks me out, but it doesn't happen too frequently, so it's not a huge problem or turn off about the Dexcom G6. So the main reason why I got the Dexcom in the first place was just to get better control of my blood sugar and to monitor it while I run. My camera just stopped recording because this video is so long. But also I chose it so my parents could also help me manage my blood sugar. I got this when I got the G5 when I was 12, so it was all new, and so they could help me monitor my blood sugar. Now I kind of literally pretty much do everything on my own, but it's still nice for them to have it during the nighttime because that's just nice to have a little bit of safety. It just makes me feel safer overall having diabetes and with my blood sugar and stuff. And then I would 1000% recommend the Dexcom to literally anyone, especially like little kids, and the Dexcom share feature is just really, really nice to have somebody else look out for you and be aware of what's going on with your blood sugar. Alrighty, so those were the pros and cons of the Omnipod insulin pump and the Dexcom G6, and also why I chose each and why they work best for me personally. Let me know down below in the comments what you use to manage your diabetes. I'm interested to hear like all the different combinations of things that you use. Be sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We post every single day, and be sure to turn on the notification bell to get notified every time we upload. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed or if it helped you out in any way. I know this video was a really long one, so if you made it to the end, you're a real supporter and I appreciate you so much. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you next week. Bye guys.